The Grumman F7F Tigercat was the first twin-engined fighter aircraft to enter service with the United States Navy. Designed for the new Midway-class aircraft carriers, the aircraft were too large to operate from earlier decks. Although delivered to United States Marine Corps combat units before the end of World War II, the Tigercat did not see combat service in that war. Most F7Fs ended up in land-based service, as attack aircraft or night fighters. Only the later F7F4N was certified for carrier service. They saw service in the Korean War and were withdrawn from service in 1954. Design and development. Based on the earlier Grumman XP-50 that was eventually cancelled, the company developed the XP-65 further for a future convoy fighter concept. In 1943, work on the XP-65 was terminated in favor of the design that would eventually become the F7F. The contract for the prototype XF7F1 was signed on June 30, 1941. Grumman's aim was to produce a fighter that outperformed and outgunned all existing fighter aircraft, and that had an auxiliary ground attack capability. Armament was heavy, 420mm cannons and 4 0.50 and machine guns, as well as underwing and under-fuselage hardpoints for bombs and torpedoes. Performance met expectations too. The F7F Tigercat was one of the highest performance piston-engine fighters, with a top speed well in excess of the U.S. Navy's single-engined aircraft to Euro 71 mph faster than a Grumman F6F Hellcat at sea level. Captain Frederick M. Trapnell, one of the Navy's premier test pilots, opined that, "It's the best damn fighter I've ever flown." The Grumman F7F was originally named the Tomcat, but this name was rejected as it was considered too suggestive, at the time. The name would much later be used for the Grumman F-14. All this was bought at the cost of heavy weight and a high landing speed, but what caused the aircraft to fail carrier suitability trials was poor directional stability with only one engine operational, as well as problems with the arrestor hook design. The initial production series was therefore used only from land bases by the USMC, as night fighters with APS-6 radar. At first, they were single-seat F7F1N aircraft, but after the 34th production aircraft, a second seat for a radar operator was added. These aircraft were designated F7F2N. The next version produced, the F7F3, was modified to correct the issues that caused the aircraft to fail carrier acceptance, and this version was again trialed on the USA Shangri-La. A wing failure on a heavy landing caused the failure of this carrier qualification too. F7F3 aircraft were produced in day fighter, night fighter and photo reconnaissance versions. A final version, the F7F4N, was extensively rebuilt for additional strength and stability, and did pass carrier qualification, but only 12 were built. Operational history: Marine Corps Night Fighter Squadron VMF, N-513 flying F7F3N Tigercat saw action in the early stages of the Korean War, flying night interdiction and fighter missions and shooting down 2 Polikarpov Po-2 biplanes. This was the only combat use of the aircraft. Most F7F2 nanoseconds were modified to control drones for combat training, and these gained bubble canopies over the rear cockpit for the drone controller. An F7F2D used for pilot transiting also had a rear sliding, bubble canopy. In 1945, 2 Tigercats, serial TT-346 and TT-349, were evaluated, but rejected, by the British Royal Navy, preferring a navalised version of the de Havilland Hornet. Variants: XP-65, proposed U.S. Army Air Force fighter. XF7F1, prototype aircraft, 2 built. F7F1 Tigercat, twin-engine fighter-bomber aircraft, powered by 2 Pratt & Whitney A2800-22W radial piston engines. First production version, 34 built. F7F1N Tigercat, single-seat night fighter aircraft, fitted with an APS-6 radar. XF7F2N, night fighter prototype, 1 built. F7F2N Tigercat, 2-seat night fighter, 65 built. F7F2D, small numbers of F7F2 nanoseconds converted into drone control aircraft. The aircraft were fitted with an F8F Tigercat windshield behind the cockpit. F7F3 Tigercat, single-seat fighter-bomber aircraft, powered by two Pratt & Whitney A2800-34W radial piston engines, 189 built. F7F3N Tigercat, two-seat night fighter aircraft, 60 built. F7F3E Tigercat, small numbers of F7F3s were converted into electronic warfare aircraft. F7F3P Tigercat, small numbers of F7F3s were converted into photo reconnaissance aircraft. F7F4N Tigercat, two-seat night fighter aircraft, fitted with an arrestor hook and other naval equipment, 13 built. Operators, a United States Marine Corps, United States Navy. Survivors. Beginning in 1949, F7Fs were flown to the then U.S. Navy storage facility at Naval Air Station Litchfield Park, Arizona. Although the vast majority of the airframes were eventually scrapped, a number of examples were purchased as surplus. The surviving Tigercats were primarily used as water bombers to fight forest fires in the 1960s and 1970s, and SISQ Flying Services of Santa Rosa, California operated an F7F3N tanker in this role until retirement in the late 1980s. Airworthy. F7F3. 80,375, Tigercat N379 AKLLC in Bellevue, Washington, 80390, Lewis Air Legends in San Antonio, Texas, 80411, Palm Springs Air Museum in Palm Springs, California, 80425, Avstar Incorporated in Seattle, Washington, 80483, Historic Flight Foundation in Mukilteo, Washington, 80503, Lewis Air Legends in San Antonio, Texas, 80532, Merle Main Enterprises in Ontario, Oregon. On display. F7F3. 80,373, National Naval Aviation Museum in NAS Pensacola, Florida, 80382, Planes of Fame Museum in Chino, California, 80410, Palmer Air and Space Museum, adjacent to Davis-Monthan AFB, in Tucson, Arizona. Under restoration. F7F3. 80,374, to airworthiness by Pistaway N7629 CLCC in Bellevue, Washington, 80404, in storage at the Fantasy of Flight in Polk City, Florida. Specifications. Data from Jane's Fighting Aircraft of World War II, General Characteristics, Crew, 2, Length, 45 feet 4 inches, Wingspan, 51 feet 6 in, Height, 16 feet 7 in, Wing Area, 455 FTA squared, empty weight, 16,270 pounds, max takeoff weight, 25,720 pounds, power plant, TUA, Pratt & Whitney A2800-34W double WASP radial engines, 2,100 horsepower each, performance, maximum speed, 460 miles per hour, range, 1,200 miles, service ceiling, 40,400 feet, rate of climb, 4,530 feet per minute, armament, guns, 4A, 20mm M2 cannon, 4A, 0.50 and M2 Browning machine gun. Bombs, 2A, 1,000 pounds bombs under wings or, 1A, torpedo under fuselage. Avionics, ANAPS-19 radar, see also, related development, Grumman XTSF, aircraft of comparable role, configuration and era, de Havilland Hornet, FMAA-30A Anchor Focke-Wulf TAR 154, Northrop P-61 Black Widow, related lists, list of aircraft of World War II, list of military aircraft of the United States, list of military aircraft of the United States, references, notes. Bibliography. External links, Manual, AN01-85FA1 Pilot's Handbook for Navy Model F7F1N, F7F2N, F7F3, F7F3N, F7F4N Airplanes, Naval Aviation Museum, F7F History and Pictures, F7F Tigercat Big Bossman Air Razor, F7F Tigercat Flight Demonstration by Clay Lacey.